The jukebox was playing that same stupid Tom Petty song she once said reminded her of her father. American Girl. She used to hum it while doing dishes, twisting her hair around her fingers like a teenager with a crush. She wasn't humming now. Her face, God, her face, it twisted the moment she looked up and saw me standing there. Like she'd swallowed vinegar. Like I had ruined her perfect little night. And the guy sitting next to her? He froze. Didn't blink. Didn't move. Just clutched his glass like he expected me to launch myself across the bar and shatter it over his skull. I didn't. I just stood there, holding a grocery bag. Yeah, a grocery bag. It still had the rotisserie chicken she asked me to pick up for dinner later. The receipt was poking out the top. It wasn't supposed to be like this. 5 minutes earlier, I was standing in our kitchen, trying to cut the plastic off the chicken with those dull scissors she refuses to replace. And then, I found her phone. She never leaves it behind. Never. That thing's glued to her hand like a third lung. It was on the table, screen still lit up from a notification. See you soon, face-blowing kiss. I tapped it. It opened without a passcode. Maybe she forgot to lock it. Maybe she didn't care anymore. There was a thread. A long one. Messages stretching back months. Some guy named Dale. I didn't even know he knew a Dale. I skimmed. My stomach flipped. Then flipped again. He called her dream girl. Said he missed her neck. Said he still thought about that hotel in Spokane. I didn't even know she'd been to Spokane. I left the chicken on the counter, grabbed the keys, and opened Google Maps. Searched the bar she mentioned once, offhandedly, saying she hated it. Too dark, she claimed. Turns out it was the perfect kind of dark. For them. When I walked in, my eyes took a second to adjust. I spotted her right away. Her hair was curled. She only does that for weddings and interviews. She was laughing at something he said. But the second she saw me, dead silence. She stood, knocked over her drink. Milo, she said. Like she was surprised. Like I was the one who had some explaining to do. She didn't know I'd read every word. She didn't know I'd memorized the phrase. You make me forget I'm married. I hadn't said a word yet. But she was already sweating. And Dale? He was trying not to make eye contact. I looked down at the grocery bag in my hand. The rotisserie chicken had started to leak through the bottom. I dropped it at her feet. Dinner's ready. Fallon stared down at the greasy bag like it might explode. The bottom had soaked through, and the chicken slipped partway out of the plastic, steaming, pitiful, shiny with store-bought glaze. She didn't bend down. She didn't move. Her eyes flicked up to me, wide, like maybe if she stayed still long enough, I'd vanish. Dale finally blinked. He looked between us, his mouth twitching with something that might have been confusion or guilt, or, maybe the worst of all, boredom. Like he'd been through this before. Like I wasn't the first husband to walk in on him having drinks with someone else's world. You're early, Fallon said. Her voice cracked halfway through. That's what she went with. You're early. Not I'm sorry, not Milo. Please, not even it's not what it looks like. No. Just 3 useless words, strung together like she was trying to slap a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. I read everything, I said. I didn't shout. I didn't whisper. I just let it hang there in the air between us like a rope. All the texts. Spokane. The hotel. His stupid poetry. Dale shifted in his seat, finally leaning back. Hey man, he said, lifting both hands like he was directing traffic. I didn't know she was. She told you. I snapped. She told you she was married. She said you make her forget it. His hand stayed up, but he didn't deny it. Just dropped his gaze to the chicken, like it was suddenly the most fascinating thing in the bar. What neither of them knew was that this wasn't the first time I'd seen them together. Not really. I'd been in this bar before, a week ago. Sat alone in a booth near the bathrooms, hoodie up, pretending to scroll through sports scores while they shared some ridiculous chocolate martini and leaned in so close their foreheads nearly touched. I didn't confront them then. I wasn't ready. I wasn't even sure what I was looking at. But now I had screenshots. A trail of receipts. My heart had been properly broken. I was certified. Fallon took a step forward. Her voice dropped. Can we please talk somewhere else? I laughed. It surprised even me. It came out shaky, like a cough. Oh, now you want to talk? I pointed at Dale. You think I'm going to walk away and leave you here with him? The bartender was staring. A couple on the other side of the bar stopped sipping their sangria. I could feel my ears burning. But I couldn't stop now. I loved you, I said. I defended you when my own sister said you were cold. I took a second job so you could go back to school. You remember that? Or did Dale here erase that too? Fallon opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Just a long, stammering breath. And that's when I made my biggest mistake. I said, if you walk out that door with him, don't bother coming back. It sounded strong in my head, but the moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Because she didn't flinch. She didn't panic. Her eyes didn't well up with tears like I imagined. She looked at Dale, and he nodded, like this had been discussed, like they were ready. Fallon grabbed her coat. My wife. My Fallon. She stepped over the chicken, didn't look back, and walked toward the door. And just before she left, she turned her head and said something that would shatter the last piece of me I was trying to hold on to. She didn't whisper it. She didn't scream it. She said it like it was nothing. Like it was a punchline to a joke only she and Dale were in on. Don't forget to clean up your mess. And then she was gone. Just gone. Out the door with a man I'd never met until 10 minutes ago, but had apparently been living rent-free in her text threads for months. The same man who called her Honeybee, who sent her playlists with names like For Our Getaway, and had the nerve to tell her that real love doesn't need permission. I stood there for a full minute, frozen, smelling the cheap citrus cleaner from the bar floor, and staring at that greasy paper bag like it might explain something to me. It didn't. All it did was soak, and leak, and stink. The bartender cleared his throat gently, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that there were eyes on me, pity pooling in the corners of their glances. I picked up the bag. The bottom fell out completely. Chicken hit the floor with a wet splat, skin first. I didn't even flinch. I left it there and walked out into the cold. I got in the car and didn't start it. Just sat there in the dark with the wheel under my hands and the taste of metal in my mouth. There was a sharp little ache in my jaw. I'd been clenching it so hard, I probably cracked a filling. You know what's funny? On the drive back, I realized she hadn't even taken her car. She must have had Dale pick her up. That's how confident she was. That's how certain she was that I'd never find out. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. And the worst part? I couldn't even cry. Not yet. Not then. I just kept picturing her standing over the chicken and calling it my mess. As if she didn't just set our entire life on fire and walk out with a match still smoking in her hand. When I got home, everything was still warm. Her perfume lingered in the hallway. Her charger was plugged into the wall by the couch. There was half a LaCroix can still fizzing on the nightstand. I stared at it for 10 minutes, wondering if I should pour it out or leave it there like evidence for a crime no one would ever be punished for. I checked her drawer. Empty. She'd packed quickly. No note. No text. Just a lipstick stain on the bathroom mirror that said more than words could. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I go after her? Why didn't I fight? Why didn't I scream? Because she didn't hesitate. She walked out like the door had always been open. Like she'd just been waiting for the right moment to step through it. Like I was the thing holding her back from whatever version of herself she believed she deserved to become. And Dale, smug little Dale, just happened to be waiting on the other side, arms open, no questions asked. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I couldn't face the bed, but because her side still smelled like eucalyptus and betrayal. The next morning, I found something. Something she must have forgotten to take with her. And that's when things really started to spiral. I found it under the bed. Not hidden exactly. More like forgotten. A small zippered pouch, black leather, something she used to keep makeup in when we traveled. I almost didn't check. Part of me thought it would just be old mascara and a dried-out beauty blender. But there was something bulky inside. Something heavy. My fingers were already shaking as I pulled it out. Inside, there were two things. One, a hotel keycard. Room 319. No logo. No branding. Just a plain black card with a faint scratch on one corner, the kind you get from a mid-range business hotel trying to seem fancier than it is. And two, a folded receipt. It was from a gas station off I-84, timestamped 2 weeks ago, the same weekend she told me she was volunteering at a friend's fundraiser. I remember that weekend. I ordered pizza, watched reruns of The Office, texted her goodnight, told her I missed her, and she replied, "Same, Babe Redheart." The receipt had two things circled in blue pen, a bottle of wine and a pack of condoms. I sat on the floor and stared at that pouch like it was radioactive. My stomach was twisting into a shape I didn't know existed. It was one thing to catch her at the bar, one thing to read the messages. But this made it real, tangible, a record. She brought this pouch back into our house, slipped it under our bed, laid next to it while I slept beside her like nothing was wrong. It wasn't an accident. She wanted me to find it. Or at least, part of her did. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept turning those two items over in my hands like they were puzzle pieces to a life I didn't recognize anymore. Room 319. I kept whispering it like a curse. Like saying it out loud would change something. The next morning, I did something stupid. I called the hotel. I didn't even have a name, just a highway exit and a room number. But the woman on the phone was helpful. Too helpful. I gave her the date on the receipt, told her I was just trying to track down a missing credit card, and she confirmed the reservation for room 319 had been under the name Fallon Parks. My wife's maiden name. A name she hadn't used in years. And then she said something that made my skin crawl. "Oh yeah," she said casually. "That couple was here for the wedding. Checked in late Friday. Checked out early Sunday." The woman had the prettiest laugh. I remember thinking how in love they looked. In love. I didn't correct her. I just thanked her and hung up. That was the moment I realized. Fallon wasn't just having an affair. She was living a second life. A parallel version of herself where I didn't exist, where she laughed without shame and used her old last name like it was a costume. And Dale? He wasn't a fling. He was the alternate ending to the story we were supposed to be writing together. I couldn't stop picturing it. Her checking into that room, setting down her overnight bag, brushing her teeth while he sat on the bed flipping channels like he belonged there. Like he'd earned her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch drywall. I wanted to drive back to that hotel and burn room 319 to the ground. But instead, I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at her pillow. And that's when my phone buzzed. It was a text. From an unknown number. Just 3 words. "You deserve this. You deserve this." 3 words. No name. No context. No punctuation. Just sitting there on my screen like a punch in the teeth. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. My first instinct was to call Fallon, not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I needed to know if it was her. But I stopped myself. She wouldn't send that. It was too direct. Too cruel. Fallon didn't do confrontation. She did cold silence, passive avoidance. She could ghost someone sitting 2 feet away. And yet, it sounded like her. It felt like her. The way it hit that exact nerve in my chest. The one I'd been pretending didn't exist since the bar. I called the number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. No name, no recording. Just that robotic voice. The person you were trying to reach is unavailable. That somehow made it worse. I tried to shake it off. Tell myself it was spam. A sick joke. Dale, maybe, trying to rattle me. But the thing is, no one else knew. No one. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not my sister, not my coworkers, not even that one college friend I only talk to when my life is falling apart. Which meant that whoever sent it either knew Fallon or was Fallon. For the first time since all of this started, I felt something worse than heartbreak. I felt hunted. The next few days were a blur. I didn't go to work. I told my manager I had the flu. He offered to drop off soup. I ignored the message. I couldn't stand the thought of someone being kind to me right now. Not when my life felt like it had been hollowed out with a rusted spoon. I started noticing things. Little things. Paranoid things. The back door was unlocked when I came home from picking up groceries. A car parked across the street had the same dented fender every day, but never seemed to leave. My inbox had 3 password reset requests from services I didn't even remember signing up for. One night, someone rang the doorbell at 2:17 a.m., and when I checked the peephole, no one was there. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was cracking. But maybe it wasn't just an affair. Maybe Fallon was hiding something worse. I started going through her things. Emails. Paperwork. Old notebooks she left behind. I knew it was pathetic. I felt like a child digging through a parent's drawers for secrets. But I didn't care anymore. I wasn't Milo the husband. I was Milo the detective. Milo the abandoned. Milo the cautionary tale. And then I found it. A photo. Tucked into the back of a spiral journal she used to keep meal plans in. It was folded, creased, like it had been handled too many times. It showed Fallon and Dale, but not at the bar and not at the hotel. They were standing in front of a house, smiling, holding keys. The date scribbled on the back, 3 months ago, and underneath it, in her handwriting, were 4 words I'll never forget. Our next chapter begins. That's when I realized she was never planning to come back. This wasn't some affair she got swept up in. This was an exit strategy, and I was never part of the plan. But if she thought she could just erase me quietly, she had another thing coming. Because I was about to show up at that house. And this time, I wasn't leaving quietly. It took me 2 hours to work up the nerve to drive to the house. I had the address. It was printed in tiny letters on the bottom corner of that photo. 1638, Riverpine Lane. A cul-de-sac, tucked behind a gated community 30 minutes outside the city. I'd never been there. Fallon and I had always talked about moving to the suburbs, but it was just talk. Or so I thought. The moment I turned onto Riverpine, everything felt wrong. The houses were too perfect. The lawns too green. Wind chimes jingled from porches like fake laughter. This wasn't where affairs happened. This was where second lives were built. I parked down the block and walked the rest of the way. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it might scare off the birds. When I reached the front door, I didn't ring the bell. I knocked. 3 slow knocks. Just like in the movies. It took 20 seconds. Then the door opened. Dale. No surprise on his face. No anger. He just looked at me like I was an Amazon package he didn't remember ordering. He didn't say a word, just held the door open and stepped aside, as if he knew why I was here. As if he was expecting me. I walked in. The house smelled like fresh paint and vanilla. Shoes neatly lined up by the door. A jacket draped over the arm of the couch. Framed photos on the wall, none of them included me. One showed Fallon in a sundress I'd never seen, holding a glass of wine in one hand and Dale's face in the other like he was her prize. She came down the stairs 30 seconds later. Barefoot. She froze when she saw me. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't speak. I looked at her, really looked, and realized this was the real Fallon. Not the version I'd known. Not the one who came home late and blamed traffic. This one was lighter somehow. Less guarded. Her hair was longer than it had been 2 weeks ago. She looked rested. I wanted to scream. To ask her how long she'd been planning this. If our marriage had ever meant anything. If I had ever meant anything. But all I said was, so this is it. Fallon glanced at Dale, then stepped off the last stair. I told you not to come. You didn't tell me anything, I replied. You left a chicken on the floor and disappeared. She actually smiled at that. A tired, almost pitying smile. You always miss the point, Milo. Dale walked into the kitchen like this was a Tuesday. Like I wasn't there. Like I didn't matter. You lied to me, I said. My voice cracked. You built a life without me. You didn't even ask. You just erased me. Fallon crossed her arms. You erased yourself, Milo. You stopped showing up a long time ago. You were just too wrapped up in your sadness to notice. That hit harder than anything. Because somewhere, deep down, I knew it wasn't entirely false. But I wasn't here for therapy. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the hotel key card. Set it on the coffee table. You left this behind, I said. She looked down at it, then back up at me. It wasn't a mistake, she said. I wanted you to find it. There it was. The confirmation. The gut-punch truth. Why? I asked. And what she said next wasn't cruel. Wasn't angry. It was worse. She said, because I needed you to let me go. I just stood there. Frozen. Again. And then Dale walked back into the room, holding a manila envelope. He handed it to me like he was passing along a receipt. Inside were divorce papers. Already signed by her. Already notarized. Already dated. Dated 2 weeks ago. Before I ever caught them at the bar. Before the chicken. Before the lies came undone. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. Paper doesn't usually weigh anything. But when it holds the end of your marriage, the collapse of your identity, and the proof that everything you believed was just a performance, it presses down like concrete. I didn't even open it right away. I just stood there in their living room, trying to process the fact that Fallon had planned every second of her disappearance. Like a magician setting up the trick long before the curtain rises. I was never the audience. I was the prop. Fallon didn't say a word as I tucked the envelope under my arm. She turned and walked into the kitchen, calmly picking up a glass of water like she hadn't just handed her husband the paperwork for a life she was erasing in real time. Dale didn't speak either. He leaned on the stair rail with his arms folded, like he was the manager of this heartbreak, making sure everything ended on schedule. I walked out without slamming the door. No screaming. No breakdown. Just quiet. That was scarier than rage. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat, taunting me like a smug passenger who knew they'd won. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel, but my mind was completely blank, like the part of me responsible for anger had simply packed up and gone offline. When I got home, I opened it. The divorce papers were neatly clipped, every page pristine, highlighted where I was supposed to sign. Her signature was already there, Fallon Parks, like she'd been that person all along. She even left a post-it note. Please just sign them. There's nothing left to fight for. I stared at that little yellow square for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what emotion it was supposed to trigger. Pity? Resentment? Closure? All I felt was nausea. So I did what I knew how to do. I folded the papers back up, walked outside, lit a match, and set the whole thing on fire in the barbecue grill we never used. The flames didn't explode or roar. They just sizzled gently, like even the universe thought this ending was too quiet. But I wasn't finished. Fallon wanted me to let her go, but she forgot something. She didn't get to rewrite our story alone. I had journals, emails, photos, memories, years of texts and private recordings from marriage counseling sessions where she told me she wanted to rebuild. I even had receipts, literal receipts, from gifts I bought her that she told Dale he had given her. You think people don't notice details, Fallon? I noticed. I saved everything. So I did the one thing I knew she'd hate. I wrote. I opened my laptop and I started documenting everything. Every lie, every breadcrumb, every humiliating, soul-destroying moment. Not as revenge, not as some bitter ex-husband tantrum, but because I needed to own it. I needed to carve my name into this disaster before she erased me completely. I started posting anonymously. The first one was titled, "She left me a rotisserie chicken and a bar full of silence." It went viral. I didn't use her name. I didn't use mine. But people knew. And suddenly, I wasn't alone. People messaged me, told me their stories, told me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't weak for staying too long, that they, too, had seen the signs and ignored them until it was too late. And Fallon? She didn't say a word, but I know she read it. Because 3 nights later, I got another message. Same number. No text. Just a photo. It was my old wristwatch, the one I thought I'd lost 2 years ago, sitting on her new nightstand next to a glass of water. And next to it, a positive pregnancy test. I stared at the photo for so long my eyes went dry. There it was, my old wristwatch. The one I thought I'd lost at the gym, or maybe in the airport years ago. It had been sitting on her nightstand this entire time. Quiet. Watching. A souvenir from a life I wasn't allowed to live anymore. And next to it, that second item. That test. I zoomed in to make sure. But there was no mistaking it. 2 lines. Positive. I felt everything at once. Anger. Fear. Confusion. Regret. Hope. The last one hit me the hardest, because I didn't want to hope. I didn't want to imagine that this meant anything other than what it clearly was, a message. She was letting me know, or warning me. I didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next day either. I walked around like a ghost in my own house. Everywhere I looked, there were landmines, a photo album on the shelf, her scarf still hanging on the coat rack, the tea she liked shoved behind my coffee. I called my sister. First time we'd spoken in months. She answered on the second ring and said, "I was wondering when you'd finally pick up." I broke down, told her everything. And she, bless her, didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't try to solve it. She just listened, quietly, patiently. And when I was done, when my voice cracked into silence, she said, "Milo, she didn't take your life. You gave her the key. Now go change the locks." It was the kindest, clearest thing anyone had said to me in years. So that's what I did. I didn't run back. I didn't confront Fallon. I didn't ask if the baby was mine, because deep down, I already knew it wasn't. The timing didn't make sense. The math didn't add up. And the truth was, even if it was mine, I couldn't raise a child in the ruins of this circus. I packed 2 bags, deleted her number, blocked Dale's, and I left. Not in a dramatic way. No screaming. No Facebook posts. I just left, got in my car, turned the ignition, and drove until I didn't recognize the street signs anymore. I ended up in a little town 4 hours north, by the coast. Rented a short-term place above a bookstore. The owner gave me a discount because I said I used to write. Funny thing is, I started again. Not blogs. Not rants. Stories. Some of them were about her. Most of them weren't. They were about me. The version of me I lost. The one who used to believe in things. In people. In love. And bit by bit, I got better. I made friends. Learned how to cook. Learned how to sleep without waking up in a cold sweat. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter. Something Fallon always said was a waste of energy. One of the dogs, a mutt named Juniper, latched onto me immediately. She's lying at my feet, right now as I write this. The other day, I walked past a couple holding hands and didn't feel bitterness, just peace. Like I had finally stopped bleeding. Do I still think about Fallon? Sometimes, but not the version who left me. I remember the girl in college who danced in the kitchen at 2 a.m. The one who taught me how to love kale and called thunderstorms sky tantrums. She's gone. But so is the man who would have begged her to stay. And that's the happy ending.